All right. Good evening. Good evening, Prasad. Good morning, actually, where you are, right?
Right. Good morning. And good evening to you.
Good morning and good evening to all of us who are listening. We're at the 20th Wisdom Talk today. It's been a journey, quite a journey of conversations. And the person I have today actually was one of the first people who gave me this idea that India stands for wisdom. I think, Prasad, it was in one of our early conversations where you said that just as there's a Nobel Peace Prize, India should have a prize for wisdom because we represent that. I think, and I don't know, in some strange way, I feel that seeded the idea of wisdom in me. The idea that so I want to acknowledge that connection. Uh, for the audience, I'm just going to take a moment to introduce Prasad. Prasad has been studying the intersection of business, spirituality, and science and technology, and applying that and teaching in these schools and C-suite executives, developing frameworks which combine inner transformation and wisdom. Um, he's been focusing since 2019 on non-profits, and that itself is a very interesting Vanaprastha ashram stage, which I don't know if our talk will get there, but it was fascinating. I realize I've been dialogue with you so often, or many times now. So I'm so happy to have this dialogue. Prasad works now with a lot of non-for-profits. He mentors Wisdom Tree also, and personally also is available whenever we reach out. It's very kind. He's on the boards of North South Foundation, Intellect Design, Arena Society of Org Learning, International Leadership Association, Sanskrita Bharati, Yoga Bharati, Center for Consciousness Studies and Inner Transformation, the Indic Academy. Wow. And an author of 3 books on wisdom learning and on disabled entrepreneurs. Wow, Prasad, huge privilege to have you. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
So Prasad, it's our tradition at Wisdom Talks now that we start with the question, what is wisdom? And with you in the context of your roots in India, your exposure in the world, and these diverse worlds of not-for-profit and for-profit worlds. Yeah, I would be very curious to see in this context, having seen what you have seen for all these decades, what is your understanding of wisdom? What is wisdom according to you?
When we look at Indian tradition, we look at wisdom as embodied knowledge. So it is not just a perspective that we bring for outside, but it is something that is integrated with life. So it is applied knowledge and it has deep connections to values. So when you look at knowledge plus values, when they are integrated and issued through your action, that is probably the best way to define wisdom.
Knowledge and values embodied and then expressed through action.
Yeah.
Is how you would look at.
Yeah.
Just letting that settle for a bit, what you shared. Very curious about embodiment, Prasad, because when you shared that knowledge and values ultimately expressed through us, knowledge seems to be available in plenty, and there are frameworks and there are buzzwords which people can throw around. The tricky part seems to be embodiment, right? Like how does one really move from all these concepts and to truly integrating and embodying them in our lives? What does that journey look like? How's that journey been for you? What are ways in which we could move to embodiment?
See, knowledge can be a perspective that I have, can be a thought that has been mulling in my head for a long time. You know, an interpretation I make of the context of the information. If you want to use a technology term, like it's a data that has been interpreted and that has been integrated, and it has given me a point of view. But that is like I getting the information from outside. So if I'm in a particular field, I'm in a particular context. If I use the Sanskrit term, I am in a particular kshetram. In various kshetras, I am in various contexts that I am in. There is an inherent separation between I in a field rather than I am part of the field. So what I have, again, if I use a Sanskrit term, I have a bhavana, I have a thought, I have an idea. So I want to integrate this knowledge. I want to, when I'm having this conversation with Abhishek, when we are having this dialogue, these are some preliminary thoughts that I want to be anchored in. Okay, those are some ways in which I can think about, I can prepare, and I can have.
Thanks.
And so basically that's obviously a murder that happens on it. And it's investigation. I've seen it fair to see.
So we may want to mute everybody, I guess. Okay. So I can have, before I integrate with other people, before I have a dialogue with you, I have some thoughts on what I would like to discuss, what culture is, or I have some initial anchoring into my own experience, my own stories, my own thoughts. But the moment I actually have a conversation with you, we create a field together. It is like we are part of the field. There is no I, there is no Abhishek, but we are both part of a conversation, a flow in which we may represent two sides of a river flowing through, but at the same time, we are the river. The conversation is the river, and conversation is alive. The dialogue is alive. When that takes place, my bhavana might actually start the conversation, but whatever I have embodied, however you are reacting to what I am saying, I am reacting to your questions, cannot be something I can come from a pre-planned thought, pre-planned activity. If I try to stick to the points that I want to make, or if I want to make this as if it's my public relations, or it is some points that I want to make, then it becomes very stilted. It becomes very artificial. But if I am with you and I focus on what is happening between you and me, when I am actually fully embedding myself into the dialogue, into the conversation, where I am no longer connected with my thoughts being presented to you, but I actually am influenced by you. I am connected to you. I am witnessing what is happening between us as a sakshi from outside. And I have the compassion. I am allowing my past and this present to be not necessarily something as of that is my own. I'm just bringing it. I'm bringing your experience. You are bringing your experience. I'm bringing my experience. We are in this flow together and I am completely embedded in it. Then you see, it is no longer my thoughts that shape. It is like I'm co-creating this dialogue with you and you are co-creating dialogue with me. In some respects, I'm co-creating you, you are co-creating me. So if I were to really deeply look at that, I am operating from a tattvam, tattvam, that you are. I can say that to myself and I can say that to you, but it is a mutuality. It is like if you put two parallel mirrors, whatever is in the middle keeps getting reflected infinite times and it becomes one. So then it doesn't matter where the ideas are emanating from, whether they are emanating from you, they are emanating from me. And at that time, I cannot hold thoughts as separate. I have to operate from my lived experience. Right? It is no longer a bhavana. It is a emotion and a thought merged together and spewing forth. And so my body sensations, my emotions, my thoughts, feelings, and my facial expressions, your expressions, my reactions, they all become one. So for me, I'm no longer, I can live in a conceptual world. So you are affecting me and I am affecting you. And whatever you kind of stimulate in me, I will say that. If it is, a certain deep experience that you emanate, I might share it. And if it is something that you provoke as an emotion, I might react to it. So I'm willing and I'm open, and so we are in a flow. And so for me, it is not just embodiment of my own thoughts, my own experience, but I am fully submerged in this stream of consciousness that is generating and that is operating between us. It's a shared experience. So that's what I am really meaning. So interesting that it actually, embodiment is no longer an individual embodiment. I am looking at it like we are together one body. We are creating one field. And whatever emerges, I'm curious about. And I'm fully in this.
Yes. I think as you were sharing, it was almost like a meditative exercise of awareness, even as you were describing it, because even the act in which you were describing, I was getting more and more in touch with the space in between. In my perceptual field, what came up was also one, the inner chatter of saying, oh, okay, is this right, wrong, okay, not okay, kind of the inner sensor came in. There was some ambient noise that started coming, and I had to kind of turn on the kind of noise cancellation. And a part of me was thinking, okay, how do I link this with culture? Because that's the topic. And then it also came that I'm standing here not only as myself, but with all my histories, all my contexts. And I'm not coming only as Abhishek or only as, I'm coming as like a multi-dimensional being, right? Like it's just not me. There is the whole, like it's two context merging almost, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It is connected. How is it connected with the culture? Because we are generating a shared culture at some level. I might have a mandate. You might have a mandate. We have started this Zoom call with a certain specific instructions on looking at culture, organizational culture, or if you want a non-profit culture or a for-profit culture, we might have some of that. So how do we create a shared culture among us so that whatever we discuss, whatever we dialogue, that comes forth from my experience, your inquiries, my inquiries, can we look at them together? But that can only be done if we create a shared experience, that a shared culture. That's what we call sometimes chemistry, right? So if you are talking to somebody, you can get into that flow of consciousness that is, between us very beautifully and very easily. With some people, when we are interviewing or being interviewed, it is like pulling teeth. I am in my field, you are in your field. I listen to, and then you go into a monologue, and then I listen to your monologue, I go into my monologue. There is nothing happening between us. There is no lively emotion, or there is not even a single new thought, not even a single surprise or an insight, either for you or for me or for the listeners for that matter. Is there a way we can create a collective field? Or can we acknowledge the field that we are in? Not just two of us, but also people who are, part of this. And can we experience and can we feel their energy? Can we feel their enthusiasm? Can we feel their inquiry? And can we acknowledge that maybe we too are speaking, but can we honor, appreciate, and integrate their inquiries, their interest in our dialogue, and pray that we are representatives of others. And when we have that kind of a sankalpam or ichha, when we operate out of it, hopefully the agency that we represent, the kartrutva bhavam or bhoktrutva bhavam, whatever, you as the person who is asking or interviewing, and I as the person who is responding, or that might emerge from your questions, not necessarily just from my experience. Can we create something together? Can we have fun together? Can we make it engaging, entertaining, educating, and learning together? I think that creating that shared field is where the culture actually propagates, where the culture actually begins to become a movement, if you want to call it, not just a change that you poke. Like somebody said it very beautifully, culture is like the water to the fish, or the air in which we are living in. And so to a certain extent, can you name it? You cannot. Like a water to the fish is, what is this water? What is this ocean that I am living in? What is this air? But the moment you are deprived of air, deprived of water, you immediately know the ubiquitousness of that water or air that you are part of. So for me, culture is something like that. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah. And I'm reflecting back on the invitation that you made to make this a playful conversation, which also brings in the field of others. And I'm going to definitely allow audience comments and at the cost of them knowing that we're in the flow of conversation, still if there's something that comes to you playfully, maybe we can make an exception in this talk. But even in doing that, I realized, Prasad, one, that there's immense trust I have and faith I have with you and in you. So in one way, to me, the first ingredient when I was thinking like, okay, we have to create a culture together, then I'm like, okay, it's Prasad on the other side. Can't go too wrong with Prasad. In fact, like I can just like land in that space and figure it out. And the other was also power, right? In the sense that when you shared that, can we open this to others, or can we, in our intent, can we embody what the others' wishes would also be? To me, it also kind of at a moment it felt like we're dissolving our power that we're holding as two people speaking and expanding the field to invite others to play in. So that what we may create is more collective and more whole rather than only both of us kind of creating and others consuming. Right? That's how the invitation landed for me. Was that the?
It's very interesting and very beautiful that you are saying it the way in which you are saying. The key part would be, one, can leaders or can speakers, can somebody do it for you? It's like, long time ago, a friend of mine, one H.N. Srinivas, had given me a book called Song of the Bird by Anthony DeMillo, who used to be a Christian missionary and a thought leader who wrote a book with the same name. I mean, like he says in his book, it seems there is a master who went with his disciples to a mango grove. So, the farmer asked, how would you like your mangoes to be given? Would you like to go pick your own mangoes? You might want ripe one, you might want very, juicy one. And there are so many varieties of mangoes. Which mango would you like to try? Alfonso, Kesar, Banginapalli, Dasera. What would you like? Or, by the way, would you like a mango juice? Or would you like a mango milkshake, a smoothie? Or would you like some mango cheesecake? How would you like? There are so many varieties that are available. But on the other hand, if the master and the farmer agree that all the people who have come here, they have to follow a certain recipe, and they are all going to be given a particular mango in a particular way, and that's what they are supposed to experience it. And as we go through it, or at least the farmer and the master will go through whatever they want to do, and everybody else has to follow the suit, but they don't have a choice about it, the culture will be very different. Right? So, to a certain extent, the power that we have is the energy to empower other people. It's a very subtle power, because you can change the structure, you can force a structure, you can come up with a strategy from top down as a leader. So the power you might have in those ways don't necessarily always result in a change in structure. But if there is a way in which you can affect the mindsets of people, if you can empower them to ask questions, if you can get them to what you might call ask and inquire. Let me give an example. Like several years ago, when I used to work with State Bank of India, there was a chairman of State Bank of India named O.P. Bhatt. He retired as a chairman, but he's very active on various boards, and is active not only in India, but also international stage, even at this time. One of the things which he did when he became the chairman, the first thing he did was he brought about top 20 deputy managing directors and, various heads of various parts of the functional as well as other organization. He pulled them together and he said, I might be the chairman, but we are all in this together. Because there were several other people who also competed for the managing director and the chairman's role who didn't get it. At some level, he was actually including, pacifying, empowering, even what you might call traditionally losers who didn't get the job. They are his competitors. But in a public sector organization, it is extremely important for him to include other people, because he cannot just get the right people on the bus and get the wrong people off the bus, like sometimes in the Western context people use. In a government organization, he can't hire and fire people. He does not have the ability to bring various people at a managing director level or a deputy managing director level from outside. Even a private sector bank like HFDC or ICICI might be able to do that, but he cannot just do that. In some respects, in a negative way, he's stuck with the people who are already on the bus. When he acknowledges the power they have, he becomes powerful. When he appreciates and when he gets those people on his side, the power to change the organization, the power to shape the organization becomes extraordinarily high. And he alone did not have that, and he acknowledged that. And he took one more step. He realized there were like 14 levels in the organization, in the state bank, all the way from the lowest level, that's what they call a sub-staff level, not just the clerks, but also the people who are security, people who are, who do various, what you might call a low-level tasks, like moving files from one place to another, or getting water, or providing food, or driving, or, drivers and all of them. When you look at them, they are not doing directly work connected with the customer, but they are doing work with the employees who are actually doing the customer service. So from there to the chairman, there were 14 levels. So he looked at who is actually in the middle, and then he realized that the assistant general manager, who has certain number of chief managers, and each chief manager may have a few branches of State Bank working under her or under him. So to a certain extent, majority of the State Bank employees might only know not just their manager, but their manager's manager, who is a chief manager for a small region. And then, the regional managers are at several times the AGM level. Those are like CEOs of their, what you might call a small fiefdom, if you want to call. In State Bank, he found out there were about 60 to 70 of them. He realized unless he changes their culture, the State Bank culture will not be changed. The State Bank culture, it does not depend upon what is happening in Mumbai in the headquarters, but actually the State Bank culture, which the customers experience, is the culture of each of the branch. So when I go into a State Bank of India, if they treat me badly, they look at it and say, wait a minute, State Bank does not have a customer, what you call respecting culture. They don't care about customer relationships. They don't provide superior customer service. So when I go to Axis Bank, when I go to HFDC, when I go to ICICI, the private banks, they really do so much and they respect the customer so much. But, State Bank is a government organization. They don't give a damn if I use a very street language. And that was the culture that was existing. And they felt like State Bank people might be extremely intelligent, but they use their intelligence just to keep talking among themselves. They hardly do any work. They are like clerks. They don't provide superior customer service. I would rather go have an account in somewhere else. That was the attitude that the customers had. So what he did was he went and started having these conversations in various regions, like whether they are 60 at a time, 50 at a time, 20 at a time, through various parts of the State Bank, in Mumbai or in Hyderabad or in Assam or in Calcutta or wherever. He started inviting as many people as possible. He will go there. He will sit in a room with them, close the doors. He does not allow their heads, the DGM or GMs, to come into the meeting. He just sits with all of them, introduces himself saying, hey, I just became the chairman of State Bank of India. I'm not calling you to tell you my strategy, tell you my power move, tell you what I'm going to do, what you should do. I'm here to learn from you where is that we need to make a change so that the 200-year-old State Bank of India could be extraordinary. What do we need to do so that people in your region, your branches, whether you are managing 20 branches or 50 branches or 10 branches, how can we bring happiness to your people? What are the requirements that you have? What are the kinds of needs that you have? What are the kinds of situations that you have, that you face, that you think I can address it at a headquarters level? So he just went in the first several months. He talked to them. He did not tell them. He listened to them. And when he listened to them, and then he also created something called a citizen, of State Bank of India, Citizen SBI. So he said, you are a citizen of this particular culture. And if you want to be a citizen, what would it be? How would we shape this? And as people began to become part of this culture, as they became part of this movement, if you want to call, for lack of a better word, he started harnessing the networks. He started demonstrating quick wins in different regions. Suddenly, the customer, started feeling they are cared for. The employees began to feel like the chairman listens to us, and chairman is taking notes when our AGM speak, and they are bringing changes. So suddenly, there were symbols, there were safe havens, and once the State Bank employees began to look at what's happening, suddenly the unions wanted to come and talk to State Bank and say, to the chairman and say, hey, come on, let's have a conclave with the unions. We want to negotiate with you. We want to work with you. So he broke down the power structure of what he was doing as a chairman versus unions. They became partners in bringing about change. So as a result, suddenly the stock market reacted positively, customers reacted positively. So their stock, I think, tripled in his 5 years of period, and the market share increased. So culture changed at that time. If we were to
Nice.
go
Yeah.
and say, I have the power, I am the chairman, and I'm going to tell you what I need, and I want you to go execute, nothing would have happened. So that's an example that comes to my mind when you talk about, power. I think the power we have is actually the invisible social capital, or if there are some people who are going to listen to us, they need to have the voice to shape the conversation, not just listen, to what we are doing, but they need to be part of the conversation. And how it is, we may have to come up with new ways of doing it. We may have to look at how to include them, because their voice counts a lot more than my voice, for that matter. I might have done a lot of different things for different people, but the people who are part of the wisdom tree, the part of this conversation, they have their wisdom, they have their unique inquiries, and they have their engagement with the culture. We need to figure out a way in which we can be part of, examining their issues, their joys, and together we may be able to explore what culture that we have at this moment and take it forward.
That sounds like an interesting adventure of embarking on, once again asking people who are here in the room, maybe to in the chat box share what Prasad shared. What is your inquiry when it comes to culture? And maybe some of those can pop up and inform our conversation. And while that happens, and hopefully that happens, Prasad, I think a few things stand out in what you shared. One is that instead of Mr. Bhatt wanting to be the hero of the story, he really shifted the hero story from himself to somebody else, right? And I think for leaders, the temptation to be the person who makes it happen, because it's so schooled that you have to be that person. I think that shift from feeling that I can do everything to I can do only very little, which is in terms of sharing power, empowering, and then allowing. I think to me that shift, sort of the inner shift, stood out. Like, what must it have taken for a person of that talent, caliber, and stature to actually go and take notes when people several levels below them are actually sharing. And the other thing that came to me was that there doesn't seem to be like a recipe for culture, because the moment you do a recipe for culture and run it, it kills the culture. So at most, it's an invitation to co-create rather than recipeizing culture, right? I think that is where I am.
Yeah, I would say if an organization could be anthropomorphized into a living organism, a human being for a moment, if you were to say, the head is strategy and vision. Okay. The body obviously is execution, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Customers, if the organization exists, the customers need to feel like their needs are being met, and you are providing the service that they need, and you are able to do it better than other people who are also providing the thing. But the heart of the matter is the culture. So to a certain extent, the emotions, the experience, feelings that I have, the soft, touchy-feely, not so easily articulatable, and something that is difficult to put in a language, but it can be experienced in your heart. I think that is the culture. So, there are some things which you can do But whatever you include will work. But whatever you missed including can also backfire. It can also have a shadow side. It can create a negative effect. Like same O.P. Bhatt, when he did extraordinarily well in including the lower level people, but in doing so, while he was actually, what you call bringing the hero-dom to everybody, he did become a rock star. He did become a great hero, but because he did it all himself, he ignored the next level people because he went directly to the people below. He did not necessarily share that power, or he did not allow these experiments. I'm sure he did whatever to his extent that he knows, but people, the next level, when they came back, it is like probably 12 years since he quit as the State Bank chairman, when he retired. I don't think State Bank has the same culture anymore. So one is about bringing a culture change. Second is about sustaining that culture change as a transformed culture. Is the State Bank having a transformed culture that happened after O.P. Bhatt? I don't think so. Why? People who came after him did not necessarily feel included. So whom are you including? Are you including customers? Like, for example, Amazon says it really focuses on customer support. Customer is God in Amazon. But what happened in past several years, there were some wonderful New York Times articles that said it is really terrible for employees. And the Amazon culture was not considered to be very good. It is considered to be really bad. Now they have included something about changing the Amazon employee culture. They want to not only provide superior customer service, they want to be the best the company that employees work for. Now,
so including more people.
More people. It will include more people.
So I'm wondering, Prasad, like just as there is emotional intelligence, then there would also be cultural intelligence, right? Like there is an EQ, there is a CQ. And then I'm just extrapolating that if emotional intelligence is self-awareness, interpersonal awareness, self-regulation, influence, I'm wondering if there is a culture quotient or a culture intelligence, and if you could just tell us what would be markers of that culture intelligence that people could cultivate or leaders could actively work on.
It's a very, very nice concept. I think the idea of cultural intelligence is extraordinarily important. Right. For example, I live in United States and I travel quite a bit to India, to other countries. I notice that if I treat you as I want to be treated, is a wonderful statement as long as I'm staying within one culture. It's like I will treat you as I would like to be treated. But imagine how well that will work if I'm dealing with the people who have a completely different culture, who have a completely different, who look differently than me, who expect something differently, and who have different culture, who have different education, who have different job description, who have different sexual orientation. No, for example, if I go to some of the Arabic countries, when I eat in their home, actually, if I were to make a noise, oh, like that, after I eat, holding it, it's considered to be a very good thing to do. The host will feel very satisfied. But if we were to do it in India, if I were to go and I eat like up to this, and then I just make those sounds, they say, what a glutton. This fellow just couldn't control himself. He is like a pig.
Yeah. True.
Right. So in some places, asking the food a second time is considered to be part respecting the culture, appreciating the food. But if I feel I do not want to waste anything in my plate, so if you have put various things in my plate, whether I like them or not, I finish them, but I don't want to have second round because this is too much for me. And I believe in trying not to waste food, but I have not asked any seconds at all. So the host may feel like the food was not good, so you never ask for seconds.
True.
In some culture, somebody might say, no, we need to feed you. We need to overfeed you. We need to smother you with our love and affection by giving you anything you eat. We are going to replenish it. And we are going to fill it up.
Yes.
So the question is, you cannot say there is unique culture. There are lots of different cultures.
Lots of cultures, subcultures.
Exactly. Subcultures, microcultures. So can I be aware of the culture I am part of? Subculture I am part of. Like in the State Bank example we gave, there was a headquarters culture. There was a branch culture. So you may need to pay attention. If you are working with a non-profit or for-profit, you need to begin to pay attention to the field. That's why for me, the context of a field is so important. What field am I in? What context am I in? Whom am I talking to? What is the role that I am playing? What is the role are you playing? What culture are we creating here together? Those are some things that become very relevant and meaningful.
Yeah. And it's just one is being aware of the field, playing in the field, and intentionally nudging it also towards collectively nudging it, right? For it to become what we would like it to, be.
Correct.
And I think that's a very very subtle art. I think it's not so much a science. It feels more like an art of working with consciousness, presence, presencing, and so on. I think before I move to my last question, it's a good time also for me to share about what we've been doing a little. We've been doing leadership work for a while now, several decades, and realized that culture is the key at Wisdom Tree. That's the path we're on. And we'd really like to shift the culture in the not-for-profit sector. And that's why these talks, and we're doing a whole set of pro bono workshops for people to get the basics of culture. And then for organizations who want to take this to the next level, we are offering a program called, which is titled by today's talk only, Developing Leaders and Designing Cultures, DLDC. DLDC is a 9-month journey that we're doing with the idea of how do we equip people to build these fields. So the invitation to all organizations watching this, all individuals watching this, is that definitely watch this talk and join one of our open programs that will help you cover the basics. If it calls out to you to learn the advanced cultural intelligence that we're trying to talk about, there is a program, 9-month program, DLDC, and we work with organizations one-on-one also for longer cultural journeys. So all those 3 invitations I want to kind of present to the audience here. Prasad, I was thinking just playfully, since you had made an invitation to the audience, maybe it would be fair to have a last question as the audience question rather than my question. Because you've said multiple times that let's create a culture of openness. So I want to take the liberty, with your permission, to open this up to the audience. And maybe if the audience wants to unmute and ask, we don't do it normally in Wisdom Talk, but I think if we're shifting cultures, we have to back it up with action. And therefore, I'm gonna invite the audience, someone from the audience, to kind of either unmute, go live, and or just type it into the chat box. We already have Naga Vaishnavi. So your question, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. My question has been that I was always like a person who would look into maybe more democratic process or humanizing process. But then I worked in the social sector. I worked in the grassroots and everything. But I felt like there's too much pressure for a leader to be very outspoken, very aggressive, or very a person who is soft or who is tender in his or her approach was never looked at as a leader. And when I tried to be like more inclusive and everything, people were like taking it for granted, or it's like how to say, like I used to feel like they are kind of okay, we can get away with this person, like we can pitch in different things, and we can just get away without doing any work, or without we can cover it up with anything and get away with it or something like that. I don't know how to take this forward to people who are used to, like, I feel like people are too much used to be to see leader in one perspective, like who is walking in ahead, much ahead of the followers, but not someone who is actually walking a few steps ahead but also taking the followers
May I just
with them.
interject to saying what is the question? So I hear you. I think
Yeah, I
it's
got
there.
the question
Yeah.
also.
You got the
Yeah,
question. Okay.
Yeah.
The question I'm hearing Naga Vaishnavi saying is,
How do I?
when leaders are few steps ahead, the people are taking advantage of the softness of a leader, kindness of a leader. They are looking at vulnerability and softness as a weakness rather than as a strength. How do leaders work with that kind of situation? Did I summarize it correctly? Yeah, it looks like she went off the mic. So that means probably I got at least broadly what she is trying to do. See, the key it comes down to is we need to begin to look at changing the definition of leadership if we are really trying to look at culture. Of course, long time ago, Peter Drucker, one of the pioneering organizational psychologists, said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And we also know that actually in a non-profit situation, if the leaders are not really able to take the organization along, if the organizational structures, organizational cultures are not paid sufficient attention, it becomes very difficult for CEO or a senior leader to change the organization. We need to really begin to rethink leader-follower dialogue in a non-profit organization. We need to come back to the context of what we call servant leadership, because non-profit organizations are primarily created for providing a certain kind of service where there may not be a financial, shareholder benefit, but actually there may be a provision that you provide a service in, but there are lots of other capitals that you may be able to leverage. So we may need to look at maybe the leader who is coming in as a head of the non-profit. They may have to look at themselves as a servant leader. They are at the bottom. First set of people whom they need to serve are the people in the non-profit. And then once they are motivated, so that means the primary customers for the head of the non-profit organization is actually the non-profit organization itself. Once he or she can provide the service, gain engagement, connect the hearts, get the minds to work together for a singular purpose, whichever is the purpose of the non-profit organization, when they are all aligned, the head, heart, and the hands of the non-profit aligned to serve that larger purpose for which the non-profit is created, then you have done very well. So in that respect, you don't think about, the head of non-profit, the employees of non-profit, customers of non-profit. Turn it around. Make that pyramid upside down. So you are the CEO who is at the bottom and the customers are at the top. The triangle, if you want to look at, is the organization. So first you have to work with your employees. That means they are not followers. You need to help them to become leaders themselves. So it is like you are not the leadership. You are actually the servant of those leaders. That's a big change in mindset. That itself is a culture change. So for other people from outside, they may look at you as you are the CEO of the non-profit. But your attitude need to be, I am the servant of each of you, because you are the one who is providing the customer service to all the people who are in need. I am only here in the headquarters or in the organization providing what you need so that you can go do your best work with the nonprofit. When that attitude shifts, suddenly people are empowered by you, not necessarily looking at you as a few steps ahead of other people. They look at you, you are few steps ahead in providing the customer service, because you are providing the customer service to them. And if they need to follow you, they will have to provide that to whoever are the people who come in. So Vaishnavi, if you notice, what I'm trying to do is the culture of your organization, when it becomes, like a Hanuman, like somebody put it very nicely. India is the only country where a king, a Vishnu, when he came to real life, he worked with monkeys and the bears and other animals to fight with the demons and win the war. So as a matter of fact, Rama empowered Hanuman to find Sita, and not only Hanuman, but the entire Sugriva and the entire Vanara kingdom. And interestingly, Jambavanta empowers Hanuman because he didn't even know that he had the power to cross the ocean. And so when everybody was saying, who can cross the ocean 15 miles now, whatever they called it at that time, they didn't know. But, Angada said, I can go, but I cannot come back. Jambavanta said, when I was young, I could go and come back, but I'm old, I may not be able to do it. But Hanuman is sitting, not raising any questions. Then Jambavanta says, when you were born, when you were very young, you jumped all the way to the sun and wanted to eat because you thought that the rising sun is an orange. So at that time itself, you were able to jump so much. Jumping across the ocean is not a big deal for you, but you have forgotten your own capability.
Yes.
So what did the Jambavanta do? He empowered Hanuman to be able to jump across. So Hanuman created the relationship with Sugriva and Ram, and Ram asked the help of Sugriva. Sugriva depended on Jambavanta and Hanuman. Hanuman found the Sita. Interestingly,
The whole ripple, yeah.
the whole thing happened, and in the end, by the way, the Hanuman became a god. He followed God and he became the god.
Yes.
Now, how many people worship Hanuman, right?
Yeah,
So the same way, we might have monkeys in our organization. Now, can you turn them into Hanumans?
Beautiful.
Right? So that is the empowerment I'm talking about. So the question is, I may have to figure out, instead of saying, if I pay peanuts to my employees, I will only hire monkeys. But I need to be able to look at it and say, if I have monkeys in the organization, maybe there are trees that they can climb and have the vision far ahead of what I can do, what I can look at. Right? So the culture of the organization does not depend upon the leader, as many people believe. You know, like in a for-profit organizations, it is like unbelievable money is paid to the CEOs of the organizations, and the employees and the factory workers get peanuts. But by beginning to think about, maybe for-profit may depend upon, because it's a share values, but a non-profit, you have to change the leader-follower equation to servant leader to leadership equation. So leader-leader equation. So the change in culture is, my job as the head of the organization is to make everybody in my non-profit to become a leader.
Right.
So as what you are saying, the title of this interview, changing the culture, allows people in the organization to become the leaders. They get fulfillment, they find meaning, they tap into their passion to provide the superior service, fulfilling the purpose of the organization. When you do that, then you see, you have created a movement. Even if you notice, people like some of the organizations, like Dr. Reddy's lab, they did that. The various organizations, like a design company that came and tried to work with what you call, I think I'm trying to remember let's see, the organization that worked with Reddy Labs. I'm trying to remember who they are. They worked with. There is a Silicon Valley based, huge design company, and they worked with them in terms of doing IDEO. I think, they worked with IDEO, if I'm right. So the IDEO is the company they worked with for culture change, and they helped even Dr. Reddy Labs to think about it as a movement.
Not just
do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Then you talk. Don't talk first as a leader in a non-profit. Bring the culture change through your practices. Embody the change you want to do by yourself. Make it as a part of your organization. Once people see what you are doing, then you talk about what you have been doing. Don't talk about it first.
Preach.
Don't preach. Walk the talk and let the talk come much later. So that's something that I would ask people to keep in mind.
Nice. Thank you, Prasad. On that note, it's a good time to pause this conversation, but it has so many threads open, but I'm sure our curious mind will keep inquiring. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.